Wind up, Jason! Your work isn't finished!
This is a one-time gig. When it's done, we're done.
Let's dance, asshole!
So in today's video, I want to take some time and talk about another favorite character of mine from FF7 because already on the channel I made videos talking about Sephiroth, Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa, so I felt like it was only a matter of time before I started talking about this character on the channel, and the character that I am referring to is Barret, and it wasn't until later on in the game of FF7 where I really started to appreciate the character a lot more. And what I mean by that is once we started getting a lot of that backstory on Barret's character, it really started to make me appreciate Barret's character a lot more, because when it comes to any character where we start getting a lot more insight on them, I start to really fall for the character whenever there's something in there that gets me really hooked when it comes to the overall journey that we see the character go through throughout the game. And what we saw with Barret in FF7 really helped me become a big fan of Barret like I am today. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about throughout this video, is just the emotional journey overall that Barret went through throughout FF7. So I really do hope you guys enjoy this video. And before we get into the overall discussion of the video, if you guys have anything yourselves that you want to say about Barret or just anything on FF7 in general, as always, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below so we can talk about it in the comments. So probably the very first thing that I do want to touch on when it comes to Barret's backstory is probably the early life of Barret. And what I mean by that is like talking about Barret's life before he came across Cloud, before he came across Tifa, and everybody else that we saw him with throughout FF7. So I definitely want to take some time here to talk about the early stages of Barret. So when it comes to the early life of Barret, Barret grew up in the quiet coal mining town of Coral, where the community thrived on hard work and a simple lifestyle. And as a devoted husband to Marlene, Barret was proud of his town and believed in its future. And when Shinra approached the townspeople with a proposal to build a Mach-out reactor to modernize Coral's energy production, Barret supported the project, thinking it would bring prosperity. However, this decision led to a tragedy where, after an explosion at the reactor, Shinra falsely accused the town of sabotage and launched an attack, destroying Coral and killing many of its residents. And Barret ended up watching in horror as his town was burned to the ground, leaving him filled with guilt and a growing hatred for Shinra. And the destruction of Coral, particularly the loss of his wife Marlene, shattered Barret's belief in the good of Shinra, and he felt personally responsible for the tragedy as he had advocated for the reactor to begin with. And this guilt became the fuel for his desire for revenge, as he blamed himself for the death of his wife and the devastation of his home. And Barret's grief and guilt over the destruction of Coral marked the beginning of his transformation from a coal miner into a man driven by vengeance. And when I first saw this, like when it comes to FF7 Rebirth, because obviously this existed many years ago in the OG game, but when I saw this in FF7, when we were getting insight on this particular part of Barret's backstory, it really hit me in a different way. And I realized, you know, the source material was there with the OG game, but it's just a different feeling when it comes to, you know, actually seeing things come to life when it comes to the cutscenes, because now you're seeing a lot of this modern animation. You're seeing a lot of these actors and actresses providing voice work to these characters, and it just hit me on like a whole nother level. I honestly think, you know, when I was watching these cutscenes played out when I was going through FF7 Rebirth, when I played the game earlier this year, it almost made me feel like I was in a movie theater experiencing everything on the big screen. Like it just felt like it was right in front of my face when I was seeing all of this destruction going on. And it definitely hit me on an emotional level where I really started to feel, you know, that certain part inside. Like, have you guys ever had that feeling inside where it's like you watch a movie or you're watching a TV show or like whatever the case it is, but you see like, you know, a tragic part happen in that movie or TV show, that's pretty much how I felt when I saw all this stuff happen to Barret. And since we are still talking about the early stages of Barret's life, I want to continue that even further and talk about other things that took place around that time as well when it comes to the loss of Barret's arm, because I'm pretty sure a lot of us are wondering, okay, how did Barret get like this super awesome badass arm when we first got introduced to him in the beginning of FF7? Like, how did he get this, you know, super cool machine gun arm? And also, I want to dive into his relationship with Dyne as well, which also happens to be a really big part of understanding Barret's character. So when it came to the aftermath of the attack on Coral, Barret and his best friend Dyne tried to escape the chaos, and during their desperate attempt, they were confronted by Shinra soldiers. And in the ensuing struggle, Barret lost his right arm while trying to save Dyne. And this physical loss symbolized the emotional toll the incident had taken on him, and Barret ended up replacing his arm with a machine gun, which was a constant reminder of his need for revenge in his fight against Shinra. And Barret's relationship with Dyne deteriorated after the Coral tragedy, because Dyne, who spiraled into madness and nihilism, believing that there was no future worth fighting for, and in contrast of that, Barret held on to hope in the belief that he could make a difference. And this emotional conflict reached its peak when Barret and Dyne faced off in a dramatic fight and tragic confrontation, and this encounter deepened Barret's guilt, but also reaffirmed his commitment to protect Dyne's daughter, Marlene, which we will talk about in just a few minutes, offering a glimpse into Barret's compassionate side. And just to share a few thoughts of my own when it comes to Barret and Dyne's relationship, that was another part of the game that really hit me on another level when we were diving into Barret's backstory, because once we saw that moment where Barret thought he lost Dyne, but then he ended up coming across Dyne later on in the game like we saw, it just put Barret in this difficult situation, because obviously, you know, Dyne's his best friend. He doesn't want to fight Dyne. He doesn't want to kill Dyne, but considering that, you know, Dyne just lost himself and he didn't really know what he was doing with himself at the time, you know, it just shows that emotional struggle that Barret had to go through in that exact moment. And it really made me feel for the character, because I was imagining myself in Barret's shoes if I was going up against, you know, one of my friends that I've known since childhood. I would probably end up feeling the exact same way as Barret did when he was put in that situation to fight his best friend, and just seeing how everything came together towards the end when Dyne learns that Marlene's safe. He didn't actually lose Marlene. Barret's looking after her and taking care of her and everything, and just seeing Dyne, you know, go up against Shinra and try to take them out, but he ends up dying in the process, even though Barret was trying to save him the best that he possibly could. At least it was good that Barret was able to look after Marlene and take care of her, which is the next thing that I do want to touch on in this video, because I do want to talk about Barret's relationship with Marlene, which is probably one of my favorite parts when it comes to Barret's character overall. Like, not just seeing the character growth with Barret throughout FF7, but I just love his relationship with Marlene. It's just so pure. I just love seeing them interact throughout the game. It's just, it really hits me here. I just love seeing how close both of those characters are. And I just want to share a couple thoughts on that. And I also want to, you know, talk about Barret's role in Avalanche, which also plays a part in the game as well, especially when it comes to, you know, that whole path of revenge that Barret wants to go on to begin with when it comes to that fight that he has against Shinra. Because after Dyne's descent into madness, like we discussed, Barret took responsibility for raising Marlene as his own daughter, and this relationship became the emotional core of Barret's character, and Marlene represented the future Barret was trying to protect, and his love for her just softened his otherwise hardened persona. And while his drive for revenge pushed him to join and eventually lead Avalanche as an eco-terrorist group fighting Shinra, Marlene became the anchor that kept Barret grounded, and his role as Marlene's protector showed that despite his tough exterior, Barret had a deep capacity for love and care. And as the leader of Avalanche, Barret's mission was clear. He wanted to stop Shinra from exploiting the planet and prevent other communities from suffering the same fate as Coral, and his fiery passion for this cause led him to orchestrate attacks on Shinra's Maka reactors. However, Barret often struggled with the moral consequences of his actions because the destruction of the Sector 7 slums, which resulted in the death of innocent civilians, weighed heavily on him, causing him to question whether the ends justified the means. And this eternal conflict made Barret a more complex character, where he's torn between his thirst for revenge and also the responsibility to protect those that he cares about. When I first came across Barret, I thought Barret was just going to be like this tough guy with a machine gun. Like, that's honestly all I thought of his character to begin with. But when we were getting like more layers added on to Barret's character, especially learning a lot more about him and just seeing different things that this character goes through throughout the game, it just really helped me understand like the character growth of Barret. It really made me understand that he's not just this simplistic character. He actually has a lot of layers to his character that makes him a very complex character that stands out in FF7, because there's a lot of characters in FF7 that play a crucial role in the story, especially when it comes to certain characters that are very memorable within FF7, and Barret is definitely one of these characters. So I liked right here, like we discussed, getting that insight on him and Marlene's relationship that also played into his character growth as well, and also just looking at him as the leader of Avalanche when it came to those consequences that ended up happening because of the sort of actions that he pursued. It just showed some very good character growth that came with Barret's character when it came to his journey throughout the game, which actually leads me to the last thing that I do want to talk about within this video. Throughout this video, we discussed a lot of the things that occurred in Barret's life that brought him to be the kind of character that he is now, and I just want to discuss overall the whole character growth that Barret experienced throughout the game that helped him grow into this stronger character compared to how he was before, when he was just torn apart. He didn't really know what to do with himself. He just wanted to act on revenge and just go after Shinra, but there was just certain parts throughout the game that really shaped Barret to become a stronger guy towards the end. Because throughout Final Fantasy VII, Barret's journey is one of emotional and moral growth, and his early motivations were rooted in vengeance and guilt. But as he traveled with Cloud and the group, his perspective broadened, and one of the key moments in his transformation occurs in Cosmo Canyon, where Barret learns about the balance between life, death, and the planet. And this experience helped Barret realize that his right was not just about avenging Coral, but also safeguarding the planet for future generations, especially for Marlene. And his growth as a leader and protector reflected his deeper understanding of the stakes at hand. And by the end of the game, Barret had evolved into a figure who fought not just for revenge, but also for hope in the future of the world. And his legacy as a character is one of resilience, redemption, and the power of compassion. And Barret's story is a reminder that even those burdened with guilt and anger can find healing and purpose through their connections with others. And he just symbolized the theme central to Final Fantasy VII, standing against corporate greed, protecting the environment, and fighting for justice, all while nurturing the relationships that make life worth fighting for. And Barret's backstory in Final Fantasy VII just adds rich layers to his character, making him one of the most memorable and complex figures in the game. And his journey from a guilt-ridden man bent on revenge to a protector fighting for the future of the planet mirrors many of the game's larger themes, and Barret's struggles with his own ideals, his relationships with Dyne and Marlene, and his evolution as a leader within Avalanche all contribute to a story of redemption and growth. And in the end, Barret's legacy is not just about fighting for justice, but also finding hope and purpose in a world that seems lost, a message that resonates long after the game ends. So overall, that's honestly all I have to really say when it comes to Barret's character in FF7. I just wanted to make this video to just, dedicate a special video talking about Barret's character growth throughout FF7, because like I said before, Barret was a character that I really wasn't expecting to be so complex, and after seeing the transformation of Barret's character throughout FF7 really helped me appreciate Barret's character even more, and just made me super excited to see him on screen whenever Barret had like those really hype moments throughout FF7. So for that very reason, I just became a really big fan of Barret. But if you guys have any thoughts of your own when it comes to Barret or anything that you guys want to say about FF7, as always, be sure to let me know in the comments and we'll talk about it. And if you guys enjoyed the video, as always, be sure to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And if you guys want to follow me on my social media, be sure to check out my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram, and my TikTok. All of that is located in the description below. Be sure to click on that bell for notifications so you guys are notified whenever I upload a video on the channel. Other than that, I hope all of you guys are having a fantastic day, wherever the day may be, if it's the daytime, the nighttime, or the evening. And I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.